This photo is cursed. If you don't repost it, it will kill you in your sleep tonight. Well, good thing I have my immunity doggos here. But where did this image come from? Where did all of these images come from? There really wasn't a name I could find for this image, other than the black and white photo of a guy on all fours wearing spandex and a creepy theater mask. So for the sake of this portion of the video, I'll just call it the creepy mask image. Now, I wasn't expecting this image to be so hard to find, but yeah, it was a bit of a struggle. Doing a reverse image search shows up results dating back to April 18th of 2008 on a Japanese website, which is no longer functioning. However, based on this and other search results dating back to 2010, this image was actually quite popular over on the Japanese side of the internet, which made me assume this image could have been of Japanese origin, since it does give off the vibe you'd see with some Japanese media. But as I would soon realize, I was wrong. The second results for this image came from a Flickr page that led to this user, but the creepy mask image seems to be removed from this page. Then I found a 2021 Twitter, or X, post talking about the game VR Chat, and in that thread, the Twitter user references the creepy mask image, the photo of someone crawling on all fours, leading me back to the same Flickr account. Other images tagged the same Flickr user, so my conclusion was going to be this image was a photo taken by this Flickr account. But that still wouldn't answer what the heck is going on in this image. That was until one word was attached to this image that I found: Faustwork. The Journal of Mythic Arts posted an article back in 2006, predating the earliest website that I found with this image. This site was talking about performances related to the art of masks, and here is the origin, along with the explanation of what this image is. Rob Faust is a choreographer and performer who founded Faustwork, a company that designs and makes masks. He's also the lead performer for one performance called The Masked Messenger, and here is in one video where one familiar pose is done. While I'm not 100% sure this is the very first time and place this image was used, the mask image was most likely used as promotional material for the Masked Messenger, but I believe this solves the mystery, for the most part. I actually talked about this one on my TikTok page a long time ago, and I also need to give a trigger warning. Not because there's anything disturbing, but rather for the skeptics. The really skeptical of the paranormal are not gonna like this entry, and you'll see why. You may have seen this image, followed with a caption containing a supposed backstory that goes something like this. A family went to McDonald's and the daughter was allowed to play in the play place. The parents took a photo of the little girl, however, something else was caught in this photo. There's someone or something next to the girl. Supposedly this thing was not there when the photo was taken. So the parents asked who was next to her, and the little girl replied, "That's my imaginary friend, Beto." This image didn't get much attention, but there's context to understand why. So this image was actually covered in many news articles in Spanish, but not really in English-speaking media. A few of these articles claim that this photo was taken in Mexico, and some internet users claim they knew what part of Mexico it was. but there really isn't definitive proof of that, so I can't say for certain if this image was actually captured in Mexico. The image first appeared in a Twitter thread by Cigarros Baratos, uploaded sometime in the beginning of June. The original tweets have been removed. However, I was able to find screenshots of them, so here's the backstory, translated from Spanish. Listen to this. A female friend of my sister took a photo of her daughter at the McDonald's playground, and what appears in the photo is none other than her imaginary friend. The girl says that it's her imaginary friend, Beto, or Beto if you're using the Spanish pronunciation. Seriously, I'm gathering courage to edit the photo and erase the girl's face to protect her identity, so you guys can see the face of her imaginary friend. When I saw it, I felt very heavy chills. At the same time, I'll upload them tomorrow while in Mass, and have a Vicar of God to edit the photo. Here's the photo. It's completely real, but I invite you guys to debunk this, and remove the fear I have with your explanations also. So I found the origin of this image, but the question still remains. Who or what is Beto in this photo? I have a few theories. The first theory seems like the obvious answer for a lot of people, which is that this image was photoshopped, and the person who uploaded this did it for fame. Though, I will say this. Some users have tried to analyze it with different techniques, and here I'm using a tool called photo forensics, which is a tool used for detecting basic photo editing. As you can see here, the website is detecting the emoji covering the girl's face as an obvious edit, but the face of Beto actually blends in with the rest of the image. Of course, this site is not always 100% accurate, but I think it's something worth mentioning. Also, the original Twitter thread was removed a few days after it was posted, as seen by some of the comments asking what happened to the thread. The original uploader made a comment saying, "I had to delete the thread about the imaginary friend because of the family's request. Thank you for your understanding. Love you all. What's the point? You only look for fame and followers." For which the original uploader replied, "That's what the pages that posted the screenshots were looking for. If that was the case, I would not have erased anything." So if you believe this is fake, as in the image is photoshopped, that's fine. However, there is still more to the story, which then leads to Theory 2. It's possibly real. This can go two ways. A lot of people were theorizing that maybe there was someone else in the tube with her when the photo was taken. At first, people were saying maybe another child was there with her. However, when you look at the face of Beto looks more like an elderly person than a child, especially the texture of the skin, which was pointed out by the comments. So, this could lead us to a few suspects. If it's someone older, then it could be the grandma, but this is also assuming this was a hoax by the uploader, and everyone in the family was in on it, or perhaps the family tricked the uploader, so the uploader wasn't aware of who that was. Wouldn't the sister know who that was? Maybe not. But yeah, it kind of makes sense now as to why they removed the thread. Another thing I want to mention though was a theory I thought of on my TikTok video, which basically is, it could be possible that someone was up there with the girl and tricked her into believing that it was their imaginary friend. Reason being why no one seems to recognize who Beto is, but there's some problems with that explanation, assuming this isn't a hoax by the family. Wouldn't they have noticed an adult in the play place, considering it has windows and open spaces? So even if you didn't notice the person when taking the photo, which I don't know how you wouldn't, you'd at least have to notice someone interacting with the girl at some point, unless you're not paying attention to your child, in which case all my previous points are moot. However, and this is a big however, the biggest problem with the theory of anyone at all being in the play place is it possibly ignores the weirdest aspect of this photo. Beto has no shadow. I guess now we're entering the realm of high strangeness. And I know what some of you are thinking. Starless, you cannot possibly imply this is paranormal in nature. It's obviously a kid's imagination. To which I reply, yeah, that's the problem. The kid's imagination. Well, if you're willing to open your mind a little bit, then let me explain. The original uploader made another tweet that gives a little bit more context to the photo. In a response to a deleted tweet, he said, "It was taken by a female friend of my sister, the mother of the girl. It appears that strange things happen with that girl. She sees things. She's told things about her imaginary friend to her mother, but where he came from and who he is, she won't tell, because she says the imaginary friend gets angry." So here's where it gets interesting. The story is not an isolated case, and it's eerily similar to a phenomenon that's been recorded over the years, and it's a topic that would fit more in a strange stories from across the internet video. But it's still fitting enough for this part of the video. So have you heard of, or maybe even experienced this phenomenon yourself, of people remembering having an imaginary friend as a child, or encountering an entity that they would attribute familiarity to? I talk about one such case that was also covered by a YouTube channel called Beyond Creepy, which is where I was first introduced to this phenomenon. I'm going to give a short summary of some of these stories that were shared, as a way to show that stories like these are surprisingly common, at least in the paranormal community. The first story was featured on a radio show back in March of 2010. A woman called in to share her encounter with something strange. When she was 4 years old, back in 1972, she was at her friend's house, where the friend's mom would periodically check on both kids in the playroom. At some point, a weird entity appeared in the room. The radio host asks her to describe this creature. She claimed that it looked exactly like Fozzie Bear. This Fozzie Bear had deep black eyes, similar to a bug. The woman wasn't scared. In fact, she ran up to this imposter Fozzie Bear, asked its name and if it wanted to play. She remembers they had fun, they laughed and played, but when the mom was coming to check on them, Fozzie Bear left out through the window, and in an attempt to escape, it accidentally hits its leg. And for a moment, in that split second, she saw everything. She describes the skin as creamy white with some pink, and its foot was bent. When they tried to explain to the friend's mom about Fozzie Bear, she assumed it was their imaginary friend, just something a child made up. When researching this topic, there are stories very similar to this one, and in this story, it features the Count from Sesame Street. This first story was featured in the Kryptonite podcast back in 2020. They talked about a story submitted by a viewer who was experiencing hauntings in the house she lived in when she was a teenager. But one set of experiences stood out, and that was the time the Count from Sesame Street would visit her every night while she was on her bed. She described it as looking exactly like the Count, but the teeth were crooked human teeth. The second story featuring the Count was also featured on Beyond Creepy. This one actually had two witnesses who were very young at the time, but vividly remember one night. His brother was crying, which woke him up, and he asked what was wrong. The twin brother pointed towards the corner of the room to find the Count staring at them. The Count was trying to calm them down and even telling them things about their future, which was weird. But when the original poster of the story tried to turn on the light, the entity got scared and morphed back into what he could only describe as a gray. It turned into a black mass and disappeared under the dresser. It wasn't until years later, when they were 10, that this was brought up again, and they both recalled in detail that night. There's a ton of these stories, and I didn't even include some of the stranger ones, like the time someone saw a big bird coming out of their closet and giving them a chapstick, and many more comments sharing their experiences. So in my humble opinion, I think there is something weird going on. And yeah, these stories might not mean anything to the very skeptical, but it's worth mentioning some details in the photo. Beto doesn't seem to have a shadow. You could argue there's a hand right there, but it's not really connected to a body. Like you could see with the girl on the left. The reason why I even mention these stories is because there's a pattern, one that's consistent with most of these accounts. Notice how in these stories, whatever's mimicking these characters isn't always perfect. Fozzie Bear's eyes were completely black, like a bug. The Count had human teeth, and whatever these entities are mimicking is always something familiar to these children, something friendly, which seems to either fail or succeed at their goal. Maybe this is just me, but looking at the eyes of Beto, I could see the eyes being black, not bug-like, but just within reason to still look human. And whatever Beto is, Beto must be familiar to the child, familiar enough for the child to be comfortable. And what's interesting, in a lot of these encounters, they happen when the kid is very young. However, there are cases where the eyewitness is much older, and there's definitely more to discuss on the topic, but I wanted to avoid making this video too long or too off topic. And no, I'm not saying Beto could be an alien, and I know some of these stories could imply that. You could go the more paranormal route, where this would be one of two pieces of media that I know of, where something or someone was accidentally caught on camera. Which one of those cases was a child capturing footage of her deceased grandmother on accident. So we have the origin of this image, but what is actually going on in this image is still a mystery. So I'll leave the conclusion up to you. Hoax, actual person, the paranormal, and if so, what are these entities, and what are their intentions? But hey, that's just a theory. You've probably seen an article or a video about weird things caught on trail cameras at some point on the internet, but there has been one image that has circulated the internet for a while, but hasn't been talked about too much. The image depicts a deer running away from a weird creature that has been described as a demon, the Jersey Devil, and even the Chupacabra. The Jersey Devil is a cryptid originating from New Jersey, a state in the US. And the Chupacabra originates from Puerto Rico. When doing research for this entry, the image turns out to be surprisingly old. The farthest I could date this image was 2004, where it made its way on the Coast to Coast AM website. While a lot of these links were either broken or the pages were deleted, I was able to find a few forums referencing this image, along with some news coverage.
Could the fabled Chupacabra have been sighted in Nuevo Laredo? Well, yes, according to a Laredo family who says a camera on their ranch caught a clear picture of the creature.
But could this sighting be exactly what the family claims it to be? Our Annette Garcia has the story.
I was trying to figure it out. It was something.
I told my daughter we're never going to stay in the ranch once it's dark.
They're still shocked by the image they say was caught on a camera at their Nuevo Laredo ranch. The couple, who doesn't want to be identified, says the eyes of the creature creeping through the night hasn't left their minds.
And it grabbed my attention, so I started looking into it, and I said, well, probably it's the same animal that they're considering the chupacabras.
The picture, he says, was given to him by an uncle who oversees the ranch and claims it clearly shows a deer running for its life.
So, where did this image come from? Well, it's a bit complicated. This image is actually not the original image, but rather the edited version of this image, with the demon / Jersey Devil / Chupacabra not present. A blogspot called Theresa's Haunted History of the Tri-State has an article written about this image, which explains that this unedited photograph actually came from a hunting forum, which I was unable to find. So I looked on other websites or forums that might have referenced the hunting forum that was mentioned. There was another blogspot website called The Mysterium Bunker that also wrote an article on this image, and it has some interesting details mentioned. According to this article, the photo may have existed since October of 2004, which aligns with the earliest year I could find this image. It comes from Italy, possibly, and I'm assuming it means the photo was taken in Italy. Also, it mainly spread through Facebook. In the original picture, it came from an outdoor or hunter forum. Unfortunately, I didn't have the same luck as I did with the Masked Messenger with trying to find the source of the image, and its unedited counterpart. I probably did miss something important in my research, but if you happen to find any info that I missed here regarding the demon image, feel free to comment down below. So yeah, pretty down-to-earth explanation on this one. Now, how about a creepypasta? If you ever been on the creepypasta side of the internet, you might have come across creepy posts of a dog eating cereal with a spoon. Yeah, you might need a little context. So, how about a story time? This is a translation of the original story, originally in Spanish. The dog eating cereal with a spoon. About 3 years ago, my cousin and paternal uncle invited me and my dad to the local stadium to watch the Cruz Azul game, because everyone in the family is a fan. We had agreed that me and my boss were going to pass by and get them in the car, and from there we were going to the stadium. When we got home, my cousin said that we also have to take his 6-year-old brother, because at the last minute the lady who was going to take care of him canceled. As best we could, we snuck him into the stadium. Even if they kicked us out, we could buy resale tickets. The fact is, the game ended. The team lost 1-0. And, well, they lost their undefeated streak too. We were already going to my uncle's home to leave everyone. We arrived at the uncle's house. My cousin got off quickly. The youngest and his little boy got out because they were in a hurry to use the bathroom, but my uncle stayed talking in the car with me and my dad before getting out. Suddenly, from the house at my uncle's house, we began to hear the scream of a man, as if they were torturing someone, and the three of us got out in a hurry to see what was going on. I was already getting the idea that we were going to kill a rat. We went into the living room and my cousin was all disheveled with his face red, making very grotesque gestures, and shouting like the lady from the Conjuring movie, and my little cousin was crying, hiding under the coffee table. While we thought he was having a seizure, my cousin, the oldest one, shoved a rag in his mouth. My uncle was getting desperate and almost wanted to scream. He was trying to talk to my cousin, but it seemed like he couldn't hear us, or at least he didn't pay attention to us. Then we tied him with ropes to a chair, and there he screamed and writhed. But after a while he shut up and started crying silently. We kept trying to talk to him, but it seemed like he didn't understand us. We asked my little cousin, who was still screaming but was more calm, what happened, and he said that when they arrived, they saw the dog eating cereal with a spoon. Man, if you saw when he said that, my oldest cousin went crazy again. Already we spoke to an ambulance because we didn't know what else to do. Once they took him from there, they sent him to a clinic for crazy people, and in order to not make this any longer, basically they told us that he had a few screws loose. Forever. In the heat of the situation, we thought that my little cousin was expressing himself poorly, but after a few days and more calmly, when we asked him, he told us again that when they arrived, they saw the dog eating cereal with a spoon. My aunt almost every day after that incident became hysterical because she didn't understand what the kid was referring to with the dog eating cereal with a spoon, until the boy got fed up and drew what they saw when they arrived. The family dog sitting on a dining room, eating a bowl of cereal, using a spoon. With the drawing, my aunt became even crazier, because they hadn't seen the house dog after the son went crazy, and so there it was. Since then, my cousin has to be taken to therapy every week, and the dog never showed up. This creepypasta is supposed to play on the fear of anthropomorphism, which is defined as non-human animals and objects given a human-like emotional and behavioral features. Basically, if you've ever watched any cartoon where animals are talking, having emotions, and doing anything that a human would do, that's anthropomorphism. And the fear of anthropomorphism is anthropomorphobia. While this creepypasta may be funny, if someone tries hard enough, it can turn into something slightly more unnerving. So where did the story and the original image of the creepypasta come from? The story itself came from a Facebook post made by a user named Trejo Samuel, and the story is just a fictional story. Because if you think about it logically, why would you post someone else's drawing and not the original drawing that the brother allegedly drew? Because this image is actually a piece of art made by Jay Schmetz that you can buy on Etsy. And he's involved in animal rescue, reason why he makes these in the first place. Nice. I wanted to touch on this topic as a bonus entry, specifically this video which shows a creature known as the Fresno nightcrawler, or just nightcrawlers. And let's set the record straight. While there have been many false cases of cryptid sightings, we can't ignore the times cryptid sightings turn out to be true. And there's a reason why I don't outright dismiss this one. Mostly because there's no conclusive answer. So where did this video come from? Well, the Yosemite video originates from a YouTube channel called Sierra Parahunter, which seemed like a channel focused on investigating the nightcrawler phenomenon. And this is the reason why I believe this was the case. The first video on the channel shows the original Fresno nightcrawlers that had made this cryptid popular. The upload was on April 3rd of 2011, followed by the infamous Yosemite nightcrawler video, which would be on April 4th of 2011. The uploader of the Yosemite encounter explains that some friends of theirs who live on Yosemite National Park noticed something strange on their security camera, which is aimed towards their driveway. The video was taken at night, most likely at around 2:17 a.m., which the uploader explains. They actually took a daytime photo, which is nice, and put a stroller, a rake, not that kind of rake, a boot, and a pine cone on a table. They actually did a good job here with the comparison. When I first saw the video a long time ago, I thought they were much bigger, like bigger than a person. But now it's surprising to see how small they actually are. The uploader theorizes that the smaller one could be a baby, and here's where the fun begins. The most common explanation for these nightcrawlers are puppets, which makes sense. They move in a manner similar to a puppet, and their joints don't really move in a natural way. But these are supposed supernatural beings, so I wouldn't be surprised if they don't move in a natural sort of way. The uploader tries to do an emboss filter, and I assume they did this because the emboss filter helps create a 3D effect by enhancing the edges and contours, kinda like embossed paper, pretty much. They wanted to try emboss to see if any strings were visible. Sierra Parahunter doesn't really come to any conclusions, other than it's unlikely that their neighbor would try to deceive her. I believe that's understandable, so I found where this image, or technically video, came from. Now whether there is credibility to this footage can be a whole separate video. I know I said before I wouldn't outright dismiss this sighting, and that's because there have been other sightings describing a creature similar to the nightcrawler outside of Fresno and Yosemite, so I feel like this topic deserves its own deep dive about the lore when I get the chance. Sorry this video took so long to make. I know I haven't made a video in a long time, but I will try to be a little bit more consistent. I'll be putting stuff out on TikTok as well, so if you like this video, you don't have to, but you could give a like and comment what you thought. Or is there another image you'd like to add? So are these fact or fake? Real or imaginary? A hoax or reality?